Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our FCC podcast with our friends and partners, Miami Community Newspapers. We're super excited to be here, and we have an amazing guest today. We have Thomas Overby from Chick-fil-A at River Landing, owner and operator at Chick-fil-A River Landing. We have the man, the legend, and such a privilege to have you here because you've been a partner for so many years. So please give a hand to Thomas.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm excited.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to share a little bit about what does FCC do. FCC Fútbol con Corazón. We're a nonprofit organization that utilizes soccer to prevent and solve the world's problems. So we focus on community needs. And since day one, we started operating in South Florida. We knocked the door of actually someone from Chick-fil-A came up to us. Then we went to speak to the Chick-fil-A at River Landing. By the way, those of you who don't know where is River Landing, it's by the downtown area, the mall, right? And so we went there, and I remember that your team was incredible. And since day one, you and your team have been one of our best supporters for everything that we've done for our corporate soccer tournament. Every year, you guys are there with the cow, with the soccer team, providing food for free to all of our partners, guests, families, and children. So I'm just like eternally grateful and super happy to have you here finally to hear and share your story.
Yeah, we love partnering with the organization. Like the more I hear about it and what you're doing in the community, the more it aligns with our values. So at River Landing, what's really important to us is creating an environment where everyone in the community is energized and feels like they belong. And this is very aligned with what you're doing. So anytime we can come along and support you, we're eager to.
Thank you so much, Thomas. We're going to have you as one of our game changers this year, you and your team, this year at our corporate soccer tournament, April 3rd, Thursday night. So we're excited to have you there.
Yes.
It's going to be really cool at FIU, a night of celebration. So I wanted to hear about your story on how is it that you tell me about your background. Like, where were you born? Where were you raised? How is that you moved to Miami and start your business?
Yeah. So I was born in Miami, and it's very unique. So I feel like if you're born in Miami, it's kind of hard to move other places because it's so unique.
Right.
And I lived here till I was about 13 years old. And then unfortunately I did move, and I moved to West Palm. And I had no idea what Chick-fil-A was because when I was growing up in Miami, I think the only one was in the Dadeland Mall.
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember distinctly whenever I moved to West Palm, I think Chick-fil-A was giving lunch to the school I was going to.
Oh, wow.
And
Cool school.
And they were like, "Oh, Chick-fil-A is here." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they kept telling me, "Oh, the place that only sells chicken." And I was convinced it was Pollo Tropical, like that was coming to the school because the only fast food restaurant I knew that only sold chicken.
Right.
So that's kind of when I first learned about what Chick-fil-A was. And it was just my first job as a senior in high school when I was 17 years old.
Oh, my God.
So I started working there, and I fell in love pretty quickly, specifically with the leaders and like my bosses. They really cared about me as a person, cared about where I was at. And I was fortunate enough to work for an operator. His name is Rob Morris, where he had just this long track record of helping develop talent that would go on to own their own franchises.
Oh, wow.
So that was just the culture I kind of got just dropped into, and getting dropped into a culture like that where every single leader I'm working for either ended up owning their own Chick-fil-A or had plans of owning their own restaurant. It was just very easy to get swept up in it. And the more I learned about the company, the more I worked for the company, the more I really felt that it aligned with my values. So from there, I started going to college out of high school, trying to pursue a business degree. As I was working at Chick-fil-A, and I was also bussing tables. So It took me 7 years to graduate college. And near the back, so I was working in restaurants in West Palm for about 2.5 years. And then from there, I moved to Gainesville because my girlfriend at the time, she was going to the University of Florida.
Oh, wow.
So I moved up there, finished my AA, and started continuing to working in Chick-fil-A restaurants. And then thankfully, a good friend of mine who actually married my wife, Heather, and I, his name's Ephraim Silva. He owns a store in Pompano, but he opened up a store in Pembroke Pines.
Okay.
So that's when I moved back to Miami in around, I want to say 2015.
Oh, wow.
So from, I want to say 2008, 2009 to 2015, I was out of Miami, but then the other years I've been here.
Oh my God. But this is crazy because you've been then tied to Chick-fil-A for so many years.
Yeah, so many years.
Since
Yeah.
you're 17.
Yeah, and I think it's I think it is a really a huge testament to the type of culture they create in the restaurants to want to be,
Crazy.
and
Yeah.
especially because so much life happens from 17 and I'm 30 now. So much life
Oh my
happens.
God. Crazy.
So I moved back to Miami and I was working for Ephraim. And then as I was getting ready to graduate, I felt like I really only had one experience, was working in restaurants, whether it be a more traditional like fine dining restaurant, like bussing tables, or working in a leadership position at a Chick-fil-A restaurant. The part that was the most passionate, like for me, that I loved doing the most was really engaging with the talent in the restaurant and helping develop talent. And I felt through all the franchise Chick-fil-A restaurants and operators I worked for over the years, it was just a consistent pain point. It's very difficult to have a system where that middle management tier feels cared for and they have opportunity to grow. So I started my own leadership development consulting company as I was finishing college. I did that for about 2 years. It was called Building the Bench.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, after graduated college at FIU, and then applied to own my own Chick-fil-A franchise. Was selected.
Which I've heard,
Yeah.
it's super complicated.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a very intricate process and like there's like so many filters.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I think it was 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It took me just the application process to get selected.
God.
And there's other people I've heard 5, 6. It can take a really long time. Chick-fil-A is really intentional about
Their leadership.
Yes, and they really want someone that is not just looking to open up a bunch of restaurants, to someone that is going to be engaged in the community and care about building relationships with local organizations and nonprofits and making an impact.
I love that. That is so cool. And it's just, okay, so Chick-fil-A has an amazing business model, but I know, and in different departments that they've studied it, but the focus on leadership development and human capital and like investment in human capital is one of the best ones in the nation. So I'm so happy to hear that. I had no idea of how involved you were since you were 17 there. So I'm sure you've seen an array of, I'm sure you've had amazing leaders, amazing mentors. Maybe you had some environments where, you know, you learned a lesson here, you learned
maybe what not to do.
What not to do.
Yeah.
Who to hire, what not type of people to hire, etc. So growing up, what made you realize like I really like food? Because it's like a mix. You like the ability to connect with people. Food is the excuse, right?
Yeah.
But you also love to leadership development.
Yes.
So what sparked you kind of like, you know what, this is what I'm really going to pursue? Like, what was the moment that you're like, this is my thing, this is my calling?
I think the moment that I really, really knew was when I was doing the consulting. Because up until that point, I'd only ever worked in teams, on teams, and like with teams being in the restaurant. But this was something that starting the company, I was by myself for most of it, finding clients. And I felt that one thing I was really missing is like offering entry-level jobs. I feel like there's having a great first job and a great first leader to set the tone for really like, you learn a lot of what you should and shouldn't tolerate from your first boss and what it means to have a good boss and a bad boss. And that can stick with you for so long, and it can take so many bad bosses until you finally break that paradigm that you grabbed from that first leader you had. So doing that as the consultant, I realized how much I missed when I was doing that in the restaurant and leadership positions. And then also on the customer side, especially where we're at, and part of the reason why I really wanted to open up in downtown Miami is you see people from so many different walks of life in downtown Miami. So it keeps us like on our feet of how can we serve these people well, and how can we show up and meet them where they're at. And also and food's not going anywhere.
I don't know how you say fit. If I worked at a restaurant, listen, I would be eating. I wouldn't be able to be fit at all at a restaurant. So I don't know how.
There's definitely a learning curve. There's some that you can definitely see where people are at in their journey at Chick-fil-A based on.
If I would be working there, I'll be and my kids. Oh my God, they're obsessed with Chick-fil-A. They go there once a week. But so this is the thing. I love this conversation because this topic is so important and very, it's rarely discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, at FCC, we have a pillar which is called the FCC pathway, the FCC Youth Leadership Program that we have. And it's an investment in education and youth workforce development. And it's a partnership that we have with Miami-Dade County Public Schools, where we have kids, 14 and up, to come in the leadership journey. So it's like a pipeline where they can either come and serve as volunteers, interns, or paid staff. But it's like you literally start as a volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
You get community service hours, then you become an intern. After you become an intern, you might become paid intern. And after, then you become an assistant coach or an impact coordinator. And the beautiful thing about that, it's not about if they know soccer or not. What we do is, if we teach them all these soft skills that unfortunately, they're not the harder skills nowadays.
Yeah.
Like all these soft skills of like how to speak, public speaking, or even how to speak to your teammates, or how to deal with conflict, how to deal with a uncomfortable conversation. These things are not taught enough. And what happens is, all these kids are getting all this knowledge and for math and reading and whatever, but you put them in a position for their first job and they're super awkward.
Yes.
Some of them they cannot have eye contact. So their body language, tone of voice, facial expressions are completely off, do not align, and then they cannot advocate for themselves to progress in whatever company they're working at. So you have a lot of disconnect nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have leaders like you that are synchronized and like, okay, let me build a platform where they can feel safe, they know the clear expectations, and they can grow within the ladder or within the ecosystem of Chick-fil-A, where they can attain these leadership skills. I think that is incredible, and we need more of that, more of those business models. Because, and with this, I'll make the final point. I do feel like my first job was traumatic.
It's usually great or miserable.
Oh, it was horrible.
There's very few in between.
It was horrible. It was horrible because it was like I didn't have the skills for that. It was horrible, and I was like, no, I can't do this. My second job, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing, but I was coached in the second job. The first one I wasn't, and so it made a lot of difference. And I'll say this: a lot of times, your first job, it's kind of like your first relationship. A lot of youth don't know how to navigate because very few people teach how to navigate your relationships at the beginning when you're a young, teenager. The same with the job. There's very few organizations or companies where they're actually investing in youth for this. So I think that what you're doing is incredible. I've witnessed it when I go to visit Chick-fil-A at River Landing. Like the cashier, the person that takes the order, the ones that are cooking, the operator, the community engagement person, like you guys, it's like this vibe energy that you give, and I think that is beautiful, and I love that you invest in young adults, youth.
We super appreciate it because we work really hard, and the more I feel like the more time goes on, the more we realize that is really the only thing that we need to do well, and everything else will kind of fall into place. And I loved what you mentioned about those soft skills, because there's so many soft, like one of the things that we've done, like we've kind of skipped a step accidentally in how we develop some of our talent, especially the younger talent, where we kind of assume some of these soft skills or these human skills are there. And then we see these performance issues crop up, and we're trying to understand what's going on. And then we realize that this person is struggling with empathy just in general. And it makes it really hard for them to get feedback, because the way they've only gotten feedback in their life was when it's used as like a mechanism to attack them.
Oof.
And then their shame comes up, and that's why, yes, exactly. And that's why I loved whenever I heard the FCC story and how a lot of the coaches focus on these things more than the actual soccer, with the students.
Yes.
So it's just incredible. And that's a lot of what we do. And I resonate with a lot of the stories you've shared, because we see those same students just when they're a little bit older, but sometimes a little bit more set in those ways.
Yeah,
it can be a little bit harder. So one thing that we started doing recently, that we're still new at it, so we're learning, but the interview feels like it's outdated for us, because so many of the people that we're hiring they really struggle, and there's so much talent we miss because they struggle to interview. So we've restructured it to, as best as we can, mitigate some of those initial upfront costs and kind of defer them and give them kind of a 2 weeks on the job we're going to bring you in and let you see if this is a culture you want to be a part of. And if it is, then we're going to invest the rest of the way. But we're going to give you a true shot at really, because we know how
The
hard it
experience.
is.
Right.
Yeah, it's so hard to advocate for. If you're 17 years old in an interview, sitting across from someone in their 30s, asking you about times that you've shared empathy or taking care of a teammate, it can be really hard and intimidating. And
Yes.
even though those qualities might be present, their ability to articulate them is not there. So we're leaning into that more now than we have in the past.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, no, we've had so at every site we have we to instill local talent, we have had coaches that are with us since they're in middle school or in high school. They stayed, now they're in college, and so they now mentor, let's say, the kids from, say, West Miami or Homestead. And so they share the stories of, like, this kid, for example, chronic shyness, will not speak. Great kid, he's smart, but he will not speak because there's some sort of trauma there. And so getting that kid to safety, to live this confirming experience is that he can actually be heard, and that he actually has a leader within him. It's just he has to go through micro exposure and create that safety and bravery at the same time, and the coach is there to support. And then those young leaders, then you see them leading a warm-up session, and you're like, wait, what?
You're the same guy
The same kid that will not speak, and they're like, okay guys, we're gonna do this. Just the projection of the voice changes, and you're like, what is this? Who's this kid? What happened? And so I think but I think you're like that, you're very intentional, because you started at 17. So you were part of the culture early on, and you know what it feels.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that's what that's like your unique value proposition is, you've been there, done that. And so that's why you're creating this culture of safety, of like, come as you are, and let's see how flexible you are, and we can shape you, we can elevate you, and you'll learn with us.
Yes.
So yeah, that's really cool. I love to be able to partner with with cultures like that, because unfortunately we don't see that too much in the workplace.
Oh yeah.
And it's beautiful. Our founder I always say, more than a philanthropist or community person bringing social change, I think one of his superpowers is how he invests in his leaders, and how he invests in like the ones that are doing the work. So I think that's really cool that to see this in the community at local level.
Yeah, we love it. And there's so many, like, it's so rare in fast food. Like, so many
Please.
You work at a McDonald's, it's just
the turnover.
Work 12 hours a day. No one's going to say thank you. You're going to leave, and you're not really building any life skills. You're just getting a paycheck, and that's usually going to be, it's going to get you burnt out, and it's going to leave you really at a massive deficit, and it's really hard to claw out of that. So it's the appreciation of, and the gratefulness I have for those leaders that I started working for that helped me kind of break and just kickstart that virtuous cycle.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's such a missed opportunity, right? And so that's why you guys are different. So I want to ask you, can you share with me, because of the experience you have, what have been the two or three most difficult moments in your life? It could be business, personal, it could be. And those moments, like, kind of like, who came in, or if you had a mentor or something, where you were able to navigate those challenges in a way that it wouldn't break you. Right?
Yeah, let me think about that for a moment. So the one that stands out immediately, I want to say it was probably 2 years ago in December. We were shut down for 2 weeks due to issues with our grease trap, and there were some things that were like missed and miscommunicated, and it ended up leading where it was functional, but according to the permits had a different spec than what was actually there. And it was because we had over 100 people that have a job. That,
oh my God.
So we ended up paying them. So I ended up paying them for the 2 weeks ended up being shut down, and it was really difficult. It was like every day, just phone calls, time in the city, really trying to figure out like what it is, how can we get open as soon as possible. And one thing that was great to see though in that time was just the team come together, because we were paying them. We would just find ways to, like, okay, let's go pick up a beach. Let's go serve food to the homeless. Like, let's give back to the community. It's like we're paying you to be here, even though you're not serving chicken, but we can still do the same thing that we do when we're open,
Exactly.
whenever, just in the community, and
Serving
that's why we
others.
love being where we're at, because the needs everywhere in downtown Miami. There's so much need. So it was a really challenging time, but I do think navigating those is
beautiful.
just trying to focus on what you can control and making the best out of it, and really like having those emotions, like not like stuffing them, but like, okay, like this is really challenging, this is hard, but how can I bring the team along to help me
Of course,
navigate
of
through this,
course.
which is great. And a lot of those people I actually have in my bag. I think there's close to like 30 people that have been with us since we've been open,
Oh my
that we're like
God.
inviting to like a dinner, just to celebrate just the time they spent with us. So just reflecting back on that time, I don't know if I'd be able to do it. I know you said a mentor, but a lot, like I really do feel that the team is like we really do help each other.
That's beautiful. I
Mhm.
think that's like teams are everything. I feel like a lot of analogies from soccer can be applied to business.
Oh yes, absolutely.
You could be a coach and then your team is everything because you have this like emotional co-regulation where if you're in pain, it's not the same to be in pain alone than
Hmm.
to be in pain like as a team.
Yeah,
You know, it's a whole different dynamic and experience. So I think what you just mentioned is beautiful because it's not sometimes a mentor
yeah.
or one individual person helping you navigate, but it's your same team.
It's your family. It takes, and the best thing we can do, I think, because a lot we have a lot of young employees that work
Mm,
for us because we're a fast food company. We still have a lot of people that are
of
older,
course,
that are adults. It's a little bit easier to have these conversations with them.
of course.
But a lot of times it just takes doing it first, just taking the first step of vulnerability, and usually brings out like it's almost shocking how simple it is whenever someone does take that first step, and that comes out almost naturally. And
That's
I
awesome.
love that you mentioned like just sports for the analogies. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Impact Players. It's a really,
Oh,
really good book.
nice.
And she talks a lot about, the author is Liz Wiseman, and she talks a lot about stepping up and stepping out.
Huh.
And she references the playmaker role in football, and like where they are always like they're not maybe scoring the goal, but they are always finding the person that's open. They are always keeping an eye on the whole team,
Mm,
and how those are the individuals that really make a big impact on the team. So trying
wow.
to explain that, because I think a lot of the people that we hire, it's like I want to be the person like making all the big plays, and it's like a lot of what really good teams do is they support each other.
Of course,
Mhm.
definitely. And yes, a lot of people are like, I want to be the Messi, right? And
Yes.
it's like, yeah, but it's like Puyol when in Barcelona, he was the steady one. He was the one overseeing, guarding, and making sure that the team. He would keep the team kind of like united and stable.
Hmm.
And so you always exactly. I think that's a beautiful analogy because in the team you always want to come in and honor each other's skills and talents
Hmm.
and understand also honor our roles as like what brings what. And as a leader, I'm sure you kind of scan this person is really big on this,
Hmm.
so they're great. I'm going to put them in this, I'm going to put them or elevate them in this position, and this person is this. And so how we can all complement, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
think I think that's beautiful. And then I haven't invited you, but we have we sometimes invite uh speakers or from whatever silo, different department of business, whether they're entrepreneurs or they are into tech or politicians, police officers, to speak to our youth. So you're going to be in the list.
I'd love to. Yeah, it's awesome.
Uh, so I wanted you, if you had a group of teenagers here, middle school, high school, what would be three um, advices or tips? And this is something that either you came up with personally or that you've learned throughout the years through mentors. What would be three things that you would share with them?
Okay. Can I do four? Is that
Okay,
okay?
go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, please.
Only because it's something that we're really leaning into in the restaurant right now,
Okay.
and it's something that's deeply personal to me,
Okay.
and it's helping me be a better leader as
Okay.
well.
Okay. Okay.
So there are our core values, and the way we say them in the restaurant is we say them as we choose to be, and it's courageous, curious, empathetic, and intentional. And I'll kind of unpack because I feel like they do really build upon each other.
Of course.
It takes a lot of courage to tell someone how you're feeling about something, or to ask them and be curious, like, hey, what's it like to be on the other side of me? And I feel like so many of I know myself, I struggle with this, and like really everyone in the organization struggles with this, where there's so many other voices and like things that can kind of muddy what's most important of how are you showing up for the people that are most important to you. And then once you've really walked through those first three, being courageous to start the conversation, curious to learn, really feeling what it's like to feel like to be on the other side of you, and then all that's left is just, are you going to do something about that now? So those are the things I feel like, if it doesn't matter what you learn, if you're not going through those steps when you're in your interpersonal relationships, it's going to be very difficult for you to build connection with people, and no one's really interested in following you if you're not going to connect with them.
I love that. So can you repeat the four? So it's
courageous, curious, empathetic, and intentional.
So CCEE. That's amazing.
And
I love that.
We say like we choose to be, because I was having a conversation with my director team, like my senior leadership team the other day, as we were really thinking about how we're going to, like, because the corporate jargon can be so, you say it and then you forget it. And we really don't want that to be the case. We've had different iterations of this. So we're just like, how can we say this in a way that is actionable day to day and it feels like it's a part of who we are?
Yeah.
And we choose to be, because if we were already there, I couldn't work there. There's days I don't show up that way, and I wish I did. So, and trying to have that conversation as well with it, of like, it's not if you're perfect, are you showing up for this process?
I love that. That's really cool. What can we do to support Chick-fil-A River Landing?
I would say just like stop by and give us feedback. Like this is important to us. It's important to me. It's difficult, and I'm still learning how to take my passion for this and build a team that is also excited to do it, and excited to make that type of impact in the community, where we are hyper intentional about pursuing a world where everyone is energized and feels like they belong. And the way we plan on doing it is by embodying those values. So come by, give us feedback, experience it for yourself, and let us know.
You guys heard it. You have to go to Chick-fil-A River Landing, and it's just so cool. And the people that go there, it's like you see a variety of people. It's my favorite Chick-fil-A. I know there's, I have one that I like, but my favorite one is yours, because it's like, I don't know, it feels like home. Like you get there and it's like, hey, and Giovanna, like everyone there is so, Joey's so nice. So every time we go, we take up the picture, and aesthetically is beautiful.
Oh, I appreciate that. We work
and
hard to clean
nice and clean.
Yeah, we work hard.
No.
It's hard in downtown, but we try our best.
No, I know. I'm sure. So, quick question before we go.
Mm-hmm.
What was the random fact about you? You have to say random fact.
Oh, man. Okay, this is a good random fact. I actually was a cheerleader in high school.
Yeah, right.
I was, yeah. Actually, so I'll tell the story behind it. So I had a buddy of mine.
We should have started with this.
Yeah. It's great we actually did this the other day. We do like 2 truths and a lie for the operator. It's a great one. It's a great trap lie. But I had a buddy in high school who was really big, like self-taught into like parkour, free running. And there's not really a high school sport if you have those skills that you can do except cheerleading. And he asked me, he's like, hey, would you try out for the team with me? I was like, sure. And usually it's pretty easy to make the team, because not a lot of guys try out. But I loved it. I did some of the gymnastics, learned how to do a backflip, which was a ton of fun.
God.
A lot of the stunts where you're doing the throwing and stuff.
Did you ever fall?
I wasn't in the air. I was on the ground. So we did a lot of catching, because it is scary. I don't know how they do that. Like getting thrown that high in the air, and it's like, I just met you 2 weeks ago.
No, thank you. That's okay. I would have never guessed that at all, that you were there. So yeah, I mean, you were a team sports. You were supporting others since you're in high school, because you had to support all these, the athletes. I'm sure it was cool too to meet the cheerleaders. So you were enjoying that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're almost done. I'm gonna close this out for please go visit Chick-fil-A at River Landing, and our corporate soccer tournament. Chick-fil-A will be there.
We'll be there. You'll see us there.
April 3rd. We're super excited. Thank you so much for everything that you do. You're incredible.
Yeah, it's
I'm
my pleasure.
super excited to have you as a partner. And I know beautiful and incredible things will come. And we look forward to keep scoring goals together with Chick-fil-A River Landing and your team.
Likewise. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.